The one big beautiful bill, a portion of it is to cap federal student loans at $20,000 per person per year. It's a problem, y'all. There's a total lifetime limit of 100,000. That's right. The authors who wrote this said that if there is unpaid student loan debt, that certain schools will have to take responsibility for having to pay a portion of that for the students. I don't understand how this works, but apparently some of that money that the institution is going to have to pay will go into this pool that'll go towards schools that are reaching certain metrics that the authors of this bill deem to be basically worthy to get this money. The problem is, who's going to be accountable for this? This is some type of amorphous thing that's in the sky. I'm nervous about this, right? Because there are caps already on how much student loans you can take out federally, right? That cap is way higher than $100,000, right?
Yeah.
And that makes a big difference for people who are going to grad school. And so in essence, what you're doing is you're continuing to ensure that the only people who are able to go to grad school, specifically the 4-year grad schools, the law school's 3 years, but the med schools, you're ensuring that only the rich or only the well-off can go to school.
Going back in time.
We all know what that does. We all know what that does. And that's fine. You know, that's fine. There are consequences to all those different things. But it's like when it's blatantly in your face, it's like, yo. Like, so for pre-meds who are listening, they're like, well, can you like make this real as to like how this is going to affect me? And I'm thinking about it, I'm like you have to plan with the assumption that you may not have full federal support in the future, right? Like I remember going to school in the 90s, like I started college in 96. And I remember, you know, there was a junior who was Basil, good guy, you know, cool brother, man. You ever met somebody who's just like, he's just like, nothing bothers him, nothing phases him. He wore the nicest clothes. He was popular, but he was popular for just how cool he was, right? And I remember Basil, I was telling Basil, I was like, yo, man, like, yo, like, it's like, I forgot what, I think it was the beginning of like the second semester of my first year. And we were in the same dorm and stuff like that. And he came out like at 10 o'clock in the morning. And I just got back from like the bursar's office because my shit ain't clear, if you know what I mean. My refund check ain't clear. And I was like, yo, man, they try to kick me out of school and stuff. And he's like, man, chill, man. Like, I was like, what do you mean chill? He's like, yeah, you can always take and he's like brushing his teeth while he's telling me this. He's like, chill, man. Like, you can always take out more loans and stuff. I'm like, you motherfucker. And I'm like, yo, you right. Right?
Can't do that no more with this big, beautiful bill if it goes through.
Right? And so for someone like me who knows that there's going to be this prolonged, like I knew I was going to go to med school, or I wanted to go to med school, right? It wasn't like I wanted to go work in corporate America and I just wanted to do 4 years of college just so I could get out. I was like, well, you know, I got to do 4 years of undergrad, then I got to do 4 years of med school. So yeah, I'm going to be in a hella ton of debt. Might as well just start right now. Yep. But yeah, for pre-med, you're going to have to start. If this bill goes through, you have to know that there's going to be a significant portion of your student loan debt that is not going to have any federal funding to this. And you're going to probably have to prepare yourself for using private loans or waiting for family to help you out.
So speaking of all of that, right? The other nuance of this is kind of the climate of anti-DEI, right? And so one of the ways that you can kill programs, one of the ways that in politics programs are actually killed is that you don't say, well, we don't want this program anymore. What you do is you just cut the funding. So you say, well, the program exists. It just hasn't been funded, right? So if it hasn't been funded, then technically, you know, program exists on paper, but it still doesn't exist. And so when you have universities that are saying, listen, we are going to engage in diversity recruitment efforts, we don't care what the federal government says, then the federal government can come back and go, you go ahead and do that. You better go ahead and do that. Okay?
Yeah.
But we're going to do our own thing over here and we're going to cut the funding. Because right there, if you don't have funding to be able to bring these students in, then what are you recruiting? Your recruitment efforts are moot unless the universities themselves can actually come up with their own ways of funding these students.
Well, that's a point that I was going to mention is, I was trying to figure out, well, what are the upsides of this type of bill? And I was thinking about, well, will this force schools to not inflate tuition? I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm gonna say no. I don't think that it's gonna force the schools not to inflate tuition. I just don't. You know,
because if this means that more and more people got to pay out of pocket, that could be a problem for schools. And like, yeah, you're gonna have to give me some value, right?
well, I mean, they'll just replace who paid by loans with who's paying out of pocket, right? Like that. I mean,
You think it's that
listen,
easy? You think it's that
I
easy?
do.
Yeah.
I do think it's that easy. I think that there are a number of students who are not getting into medical school who would like to get into medical school and daddy can pay.
But here's this. So there are like credible studies, research that shows that like you can see the inflection point of when tuition just catapulted.
Hmm.
Can't remember what decade it was, but it had to do with when the federal
The
government
loans.
decided that they were going to federally back
Hmm.
loans. And
Hmm.
when that occurred, schools were like, bet. Hey, yo,
Yeah.
like, no matter what,
As
I'm
Haitians would
raising.
say, BI,
Was
PI,
that, was that mean PI? How do I say
PI,
it? Interesting.
PI,
PI?
PI.
PIE.
No, not
That's what it is?
PIE, just
Ra,
PI.
ra,
No, 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 no. There's no R in it. Nope.
PIE.
No, not PIE. BI.
PIE.
There you go.
Are the Haitians, are their ears bleeding right now? PI. Sac passe. Haitians. Did I do a good job?
Yes.
All right, but here's another thing too. Like, is this going to force states to actually start implementing programs where they have to pay for medical school for people to go in, right? So, you know how like remember what's that school, Ohio University? Remember like everybody who applied there, like
Yes.
they would give you a certain
Had
amount of
to.
financial aid if you signed this contract that said you're going to come back and work
Yes.
in the state
Yes.
for like 3 to 5 years. Is that going to increase those type of programs?
So I will say this. It might, but any increase or excuse me, any effort to bring in any sort of student who cannot pay out of pocket must be financially lucrative for whomever is bringing them in, right? Let's just right. I want people to understand that there is no altruism in helping people get into medical school. Like there's no altruism, not on the side of the medical schools, not on the side of the federal government, not on the side of any of these programs that already exist, and not on the side of any programs, future programs that will exist. Out there is no altruism in getting people into medical school. Like it just doesn't exist. And I'm saying this, I'm really saying this more for the people who are very, gung ho DEI, right? Who don't understand very specifically why this whole thing even exists, right? And I'm pro DEI, don't get me wrong, but I also know what country I live in. And I know we live in a capitalistic country. So this is not about altruism, not at all. So I
I got a
just want to
question.
make that
I got a
clear.
question. I got a question for you, but I actually got a question for the audience. Would a 100,000 loan cap have stopped you from applying to medical school? So this is for the people who are in med school right now, folks who are in residency. If you knew that there was a cap on the amount of student loans that you could get, and that like pretty much half, because I think right now the majority of people, well, I don't know, I can't say that, yo. Those graduate from 400 to $500,000 of student loan debt, yo, that's more than half. That's more than half of their student loans is probably in private loans. So I present to you all, like, would you have changed your decision to go to med school or to apply to med school if you knew like some of this stuff was down the pike? Let me ask you, if you knew like, hey, Probably 75%, 50 to 75% is going to be private loans, which is going to be at like 13% back in the day.
I probably still would have applied.
You still would
I
have
probably
applied.
still would have applied. Knowing what I know now, I don't know. But
Hmm.
if you asked me back then, understanding all of this back then, I'd have been like, all right, well, if I get a loan for the government from the government versus I get a private loan, what's the big deal? I would
Yo, the
not have
stakes is
understood.
high. The stakes
Right,
are
but I
high,
would not
yo.
have
That's some
understood the
pressure,
nuance.
yo.
And this is why I think it's important that we're talking about this because pre-meds really, really, really need to understand. Don't think like Dr. Renee did, like, what's the big deal? Loan is a loan is a loan. No, a loan is a loan is not a loan.
Yo,
Because like
loan
you
got to get
said, you
paid back, yo.
gotta get paid back. And there might not be deferment, there might not be forbearance, there might be a calling of your loan, which basically means at some point any lender could be like, yeah, just give me the whole thing now. You don't have those protections with a private loan necessarily like you do with the federal government, right?
Yeah, I have to. So if it was me, because you never asked me questions, but if it was me, I
I
would
was
say
going to ask
definitely.
you a question,
Man, you ain't never
but you
asked me no
keep
questions.
chiming in.
You never asked me any questions, man.
I was going to ask you a question, but you keep chiming in.
Ask your question.
Tell us, everybody, does Nee interrupt me before I can actually ever get him to a point where I can ask a question? Let us know.
Alfred, don't plug anything in, Alfred. I know it's going to something.
That's right. Alfred, you can plug in all the times when he's
Hell no, Alfred,
interrupted
don't put
me.
nothing in there. Alfred,
Okay.
you on my side, yo. You on my side.
Whatever.
I, don't- I it wouldn't knowing all this thing was going on, I knew I wanted to be a doctor. And I was willing to
Mhm.
sacrifice anything. But I think I would be sweating bricks knowing that all of these I'd be sweating bricks knowing that. Because for me, the way when I was applying, I knew I was applying to med school without, like, I wasn't going to ask my parents for jack, right?
Mhm.
Mainly because, yo, like, by the time I was, like, yo, I had been like 6 or 7 FAFSAs in, right? So I know the jig was up with my parents. Like, they can't afford this. You know
Right.
what I'm saying? So like
Right.
if y'all don't know, like when you put in them FAFSAs, you gotta see you need your parents' tax returns, you need your parents' gross income, whatever this or that. I know they ain't got it. So when I'm going to med school or I'm applying to med school, it's I know my parents would love to help, but I know they can't
It's
help.
not an option.
So I'm not even gonna ask them. And then you want me to put them and ask them for a private loan? You know, so that's the other thing that's really interesting. It's like, yo, you probably got parents who are already like hemmed up from doing a parent plus loan for college.
Mhm.
And we just talking about one person. What if they got 2 kids in
2
school, three
kids.
kids in
Yeah.
school, and you're gonna be like, yo, mom, dad, I need to hit you up for this cosign on this private loan. What?
Mhm. Yeah.
Yo, so it's the
Yeah.
other thing too. I would have kept going, but like for me, what I really think about too is, yo, we're gonna see a lot of dropouts. We're gonna see a lot of dropouts because
So
there's gonna be
that's
some
what I
people who going through and they're gonna be like, yo, I'm done. I can't do it. I can't do it.
so that's where my mind went, was that if I did take the loan, would I eventually have to drop out, right? So the attrition rate may be affected, will be affected, just due to the fact that people don't have good enough credit to get private loans. They don't have a good, they don't have a cosigner. They don't have a cosigner with good credit, right? Like all of this. Here's my question to you before you
Because
interrupt
you
me.
because you had to get a
Look,
cosigner.
look, 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 look,
I did, man.
look,
Yo, go ahead, yo. Go ahead. Go
look.
ahead. That's peace. That's peace. That's peace. Go ahead. Go ahead.
So here's my question to you. My question to you is, would it have changed? Would it have changed the your way of applying to school if you knew you only had $100,000 guaranteed by the federal government?
Ooh, that's a good question, yo. Probably what I would do in that situation is I'd be looking at all the schools that offer some type of scholarship in some form or fashion. Like I'd be trying to prioritize, is there any type of way that I could go to like a Ohio U or any of those type of schools that say, hey, yo, if you come to the school, we'll pay
Hmm.
X, Y, and Z towards your student loan debt, but you got to stay in this state for 5 years. That's what I
Hmm.
would be prioritizing. But as we all know, it's like, look, you just kind of get in where you fit in when you're applying to med school. But I think that approach would be my first priorities. Like, let me focus on the places that are going to give me some type of student loan repayment, debt, some type of scholarship that's known for giving people scholarships. Those are the type of things that I would be focused on. But I'd be hella nervous about it because I'd be like, yo, like,
Mm-hmm.
I know I definitely would
Mm-hmm.
be thinking about, yo, I'm applying to this. I'm telling everybody, yo, I'm going to med school, and then you get in, and then next you know, I'm worried,
You
like
can't
my
pay.
second year, third year, I'm gonna have to hit up people and be like, yo, I need you to be a cosigner on this.
Yeah, can't pay.
Cosign. Yeah.
I think my approach probably would have been, I would have hit every state school in New York. I would have hit
Does it
every state
matter?
school. Well, because the tuitions are at least lower, right? And so it's like, okay, even if I had to go over 100,000, it's better to go, a few thousand more instead of 100,000 more over 100,000. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like it definitely. I think I would have started prioritizing schools by tuition. I'd have been like, this is this is low, this is low, this is low. I would have been ranking them from lowest tuition to highest tuition. That's where my thing would have gone. And so the question now is, if this thing does go through, are the schools with the lowest tuition going to be the most competitive for certain demographics?
Oh, well, first of all, the schools that offer free tuition,
Well,
they're
yeah,
gonna be applying to those
exactly.
schools.
Exactly.
So that's a good question. I got a question back to you. Those schools that are super selective,
Mhm.
that um, are known for just maybe only having a small class size.
Right.
Are they going to have to be forced to increase that class size?
I
You know what
don't
I'm
think
saying?
so. I don't think
Mm.
so. Why would they though? What would be the rationale for that?
Oof, I don't know. Like for example, like what does Morehouse do?
Well, Morehouse doubled their size like a few years ago.
Oh, they did? Well, there you
Yeah,
go.
Morehouse got really big a couple, like not a couple, but a few years back. I don't know if they doubled it. I shouldn't say they doubled it, but they increased their class size pretty significantly a few years back.
Listen, if you're listening right now and you're a med student, you're a pre-med and you're not sure what you
That
want
was
to do,
a
hey, yo,
yeah,
start doing some push-ups, start doing some sit-ups,
some monetary
start get
push-ups.
start getting on the treadmill, some Ozempic, because hey, yo, you gonna have to join the military. You gonna have to get fit. That's the option, yo.
That is the
Hey, yo, you gonna have to start getting into these
yo
programs, yo.
knee. Yo, I'm laughing to stop from crying because no, seriously. And then National Health Service Corps,
Hey,
right?
yo, you
So
gonna have to
you have
start
National
doing some
Health Service
push-ups.
Corps, which National Health Service Corps, right? Probably their applications are going to go through the roof, you know?
Absolutely. Yo,
Like,
we got to get off this topic, yo. We gotta get off this topic, yo. What's good, everyone? This is Dr. Nee. Yo, this is the end of this segment. I appreciate you for listening, but this ain't the end. If you want more, go ahead and click the next button on your favorite podcast app. Listen, that's next for more banter between me and Dr. Renee. That's next for more topics. That's next for more segments. Listen, did you hit next yet? Go ahead and click next. Hit it. Next. Peace.